Hey, how's it going? It is Tuesday, July 21st, and this is the Morning Star Drive on 117.8. We're on YouTube, so make sure to subscribe, follow us on SoundCloud, and make sure to support us on Patreon. Today we'll get some coronavirus updates, Hong Kong, and how they were one of very few countries in the world that didn't go into lockdown, and looking into this week's scriptures, the book of Daniel. So, how you guys doing today? It is already Tuesday. It is, how can we say it? It is what you call a terrific Tuesday. We're already off to the races for the work week. I'm just really glad that you guys have joined us here on the Morning Star Drive. Keep liking, keep commenting, and I want to hear from you guys and see how you're doing. Now, remember last Sunday, who did we hear from? We heard from Patrick Lawler in New York. Insightful, inspiring interview, and I had a ton of fun doing it. Make sure to take a look at the Sunday edition this week. And an announcement will be made all week, just like yesterday. Sermons in the Sky will be unlisted from next week. You can watch all of them still with the playlist link. I'll leave it in the description. What does that mean? It just means that you can't see it on my YouTube channel, but you can see it if you have the link. And I'm going to leave the link in all my videos on MSD 117.8. So just keep checking the descriptions of every video I have. It's all going to have the link to Sermons in the Sky. If you want to listen to it, just copy and paste it into your URL, and you'll be able to get in and see every video in Sermons in the Sky. Cool. Now, let's get into the featured artist of the day. Today's featured artist is Francis Han. Now, today's going to be a little bit different because yesterday we did like an all hip-hop, right? It was like an all hip-hop Monday. Today we're not going to do an all anything, but we want to do something a little bit more relaxed, right? It's a little bit more calmer. So today we usually, well, when it comes to Francis, we usually listen to his jazz things, but today we're going to listen to some classical, okay? Remember, he has a PhD in classical piano, and he is just phenomenal, okay? Now, the song we're going to hear today is called Scriabin. I'm not even sure I'm pronouncing it right, but it's Sonata Fantasy OP 19-2, okay? I don't know what that means. It sounds like code, some type of classical code, but someone else can explain that to me in the comments. Sonata Fantasy OP 19-2. And it looks like the person who is the composer is Scriabin. Okay, the second song is going to be from Studio 316, another kind of slow and mellow song. It's going to be Remember Me featuring Sarah Chamberlain. And the third song, lots of requests from last week for this post-rock artist from Paper Music Associates. It is Zeniac, and this song is going to be Trans-Neptunian Observation. I'm going to repeat that again, Trans-Neptunian Observation. So everyone, once again, let's kind of just, lay back for a little bit. We're going to listen to some amazing, amazing music from members from around the world. So let's listen on.
beloved bride, I'm sending all my love. Tightly hold my hand and never let it go. Be with me forever, let us walk this path continuously. I'll look after everything, look only at me. My beloved bride, my earnest desire is only for your love. Please give it all to me. Love me in the way I've loved you. There is nothing else besides me. I am your eternal love, your groom, the Holy Son. Though you don't hear me with your ears, I say I love
observation. That's from the post-rock artist from the Paper Music Associates. That is Zeniac, a very, very highly touted. A lot of people like to listen to this post-rock. Also, the two other songs that we heard was Studio 316, Remember Me, featuring Sarah Chamberlain, and of course, the featured artist of the day, Francis Han. Something new, something different. It was classical music. He's got his PhD in classical piano, and you heard it. It was crazy good. Once again, I'm not going to attempt the song. I'm not going to even attempt it. Well, I'm going to attempt it. Scriabin Sonata Fantasy OP 19-2. I don't know what that means, but someone else out there who is, I guess, literate in classical music can kind of inform me on what that is talking about, which moves us into the coronavirus updates of the day. So what do we see? In the world, there's 14.7 million cases, 609,000 deaths at 4.15%. Just some good news today, guys. Every country has gone down, except one country remains the same, which is Sweden. But the great thing is no one has gone up. The global mortality rate's at 4.15%. Great news. The U.S., 3.9 million cases are going to hit 4 million pretty soon. 143,000 deaths at 3.67% going down. Brazil, 2.1 million cases, 79,000 deaths at 3.79%. And India is 1.1 million, 27,000 deaths at 2.45%. Those are the top three. And then we move into like South Africa, 364,000 cases, 5,000 deaths at 1.38%. Mexico's at 344,000 cases, 39,000 deaths, and they went down to 11.38%. Colombia was one of the new people on the block from after that weekend, 197,000 cases, 6,700 deaths at 3.41%. And the Philippines, 69,000 cases with 1,800 deaths at 2.66%. And like I said before, Sweden remains at 7.27%, and Belgium goes down to 15.34% for their mortality rates. When you look at infections for a 24-hour period, the U.S. is back on top. Well, they've been on top for a while. 65,000 infections with 2% growth rate. Next is India, and they're just pulling far ahead of Brazil at 40,000 cases at 4%. Brazil's at 24,000 cases at 1%. So that's good news for Brazil. Their infection rate is actually going down. South Africa, 13,000 cases in a day, 4% growth rate. And then you have Mexico at 7,600 cases at 2%, and Colombia, the new kid on the block, 6,500 cases at a 3% growth rate. Now, what am I going to talk about today? I'm talking about Hong Kong. Of course, we talk a lot about China and the new national security law that was implemented, by force, basically, and there's a lot of problems going on there. But we don't want that to take away from how good Hong Kong did when it came to not going into lockdown, even though they had protests. So despite this takeover, we need to kind of give praise where it's due. Hong Kong was one of very few countries not going to lockdown. Like, just to give you an idea how amazing they are, they have 7.5 million people in Hong Kong, and basically over the 5 months, it's like 1,200 cases. And they had consecutive weeks with like 0 cases, like weeks. We're not talking days, weeks with 0 cases. And if I were to give you like a comparison, like if we look at Singapore's a little over 4 million people, they were doing really well until their migrant workers. There's a lot of spread for the migrant workers, and they had to go into lockdown. And if you take a look at, they're like 4.5 million people. And they have 48,000 cases compared to Hong Kong's 1,200 cases, right? And that's why Hong Kong's doing really well. They haven't gone to lockdown. But what they do need to know about Singapore is they don't have any deaths. Like, I think their deaths are under 30. It's pretty crazy how good they are with this. So, much more than the actual cases itself. The cases just give more chance for there to be death. But Singapore is locking it down as in there's no deaths. Under 30, guys. That's pretty crazy. So kudos to Singapore. Now, Hong Kong, you got to know some things about Hong Kong. They're next door to China, right? Well, now they are China, but they're next door to China. And it's one of the most dense cities in the world. They have trains and planes coming in from Wuhan. And just to let you guys know, just in January alone of this year, there were 2.5 million people that arrived from China. So just that alone is pretty much miraculous that they only had 1,200 cases. So I'm going to talk about 5 key factors that made it very, very easy for them to be able to, withstand this big, huge like virus infection, like the spread. And the first one is masks are an absolute norm in Hong Kong. They're used to it, meaning that, just recently within the last 20 years, they had the SARS infection, right? And SARS affected their city the most. So they have already been used to temperature checks. They're already used to wearing masks as a normal thing. So, like 1,800 infections in Hong Kong, and they're basically the ones that bore the brunt of the outbreak of China, and their infections is nothing, right? People were already wearing masks even before like the CDC or the WHO announced it, because the moment they heard the cases were in China, everyone took it seriously because they went through SARS, and they just don't want to go through that again. Like you look at the pictures and the videos, like the kids from everyone was wearing masks right from the beginning. The second thing that a key factor was they had strict quarantines. So this is how crazy it is. Like they have wristbands that track you. So if you come into the country and you're in quarantine, or if you have coronavirus, they'll put a wristband on you. Or if you're coming over, right, and you might be traced to maybe meeting someone with coronavirus, you will get this electronic wristband that tracks you. Cannot leave your home for 14 days. They track your location at all times, and you cannot leave. Or there is a $3,500 fine and 6 months of jail. So it's pretty serious. And you're constantly being checked on. The government is, sending you texts and stuff like that too. Another good thing, the third thing that they did really well is contact tracing. So anyone who's infected, they find out where they've been, who they've contacted, and they trace like very, very extensively. Every case undergoes contact tracing, and it's extensive contact tracing. And people who are in contact with a person who has a coronavirus, they're instructed to self-isolate. And what's even crazier, they have like an online there's an online map of confirmed cases, and it shows you where the people live and how they got infected and where they went, right? And all info is public domain, so people know where to like not go around, or where not to, get too close to. Every case is heavily investigated, and contact tracing is done very, very well. The fourth thing is something that's very distinctive to Hong Kong and to some very few countries, is they have a centralized government. It's not like they have like Democrats and Republicans and like, a third party. It's centralized. Centralized government, small population, and so it makes everything easy to control. So that's the fourth reason, which makes it very, very good. Like if you were to compare it to the U.S., the U.S. doesn't have a centralized government. They have like they have a federal government, and they have like a state government, and then you have like like counties and districts. I'm not from the U.S., but there's like multiple levels, and each of them have their own different sets of power. So that's why it just makes it a little bit more tricky. Right? It's a lot more trickier. When you have like a government like Hong Kong, everything's centralized, population is really small, super easy to control. So that's another reason. And that's something that other countries can't help. And the last one is another thing that other countries like the US can't help is just cultural habits. There is a high consciousness just in Asia in general not to affect other people. And this is why the public is a major part of the reason why the virus doesn't spread. Like if the public they play such a huge role in it. So if you understand this, the cultural outlook in Asia in general, the degree of concern for others is much higher than other countries, and the degree of taking care of each other is super high, right? So if you have like the US, like it's going to be the extreme opposite. There's just mass differences and cultural differences. And even if you look at the U.S., in the U.S. itself, just looking from the South to the Midwest to the coast, like even then, culture is so different. It is. And Hong Kong and Asian countries are a lot more homogenous when it comes to culture. And that's why it becomes a lot easier for these countries. Like those last two things, other countries just can't help. You can't help the cultural habits, and you can't help the centralized government. And of course, also when you look at the first key factor is they already went through SARS. So imagine that imagine this was the second time that we went through, say, the coronavirus. let's just say it's the second time, then everyone from the US, Canada, all over Europe would understand, wait, we've been here before, get your masks on, we don't want to go through a lockdown again. And everyone would be a lot more aware of it. And because a lot of the countries in Asia have already been through it, like South Korea and Hong Kong and Taiwan and like Singapore and such, like these countries have just been through it before. Like even when you look at Singapore, even though they have a lot of cases, Singapore, their main issue was with migrant workers, which are not Singaporeans, right? Singaporeans are very, very safe. So it's just something that we have to keep as something to understand as a key factor is just the culture itself of the people, right? Because one group of people may be more individualistic, thinking more of self, and one group is just thinking way more of other people. It's just a cultural difference, right? And that's why the public can play a very, very high role in it. It's kind of like Sweden too. Sweden, they're very, very trusting, and they, everyone has their responsibilities, and there's not a lot of like partisan politics and stuff that make people distrust the government. So it's very interesting when you kind of see the reasons behind it. Some things you can help, and some things you just can't, right? You just can't help it because it's just the way the country's been. All right. So good job, everyone in Hong Kong, and we're definitely praying for you when it comes to this issue that we're dealing with now with China, and we really hope that there'll be a great fix to this. All right. Let's move into the time of praise, and I'm sure everyone wants to do some praise right now. We're going to go into some amazing songs. The first one's called The Lord's Love. The second one is Swift Cloud. The third song, oldie but a goodie, it is I Fly with the Lord.
No one can love us as much as the Lord. We've been redeemed. He atoned for our sins. He made us whiter than the whitest snow. Now we become heaven's brides, counterparts of their love. We'll testify for the Lord, preaching the word to all the world. You who know Him clearly, boldly go proclaim the truth. For all the lives that are dying, hear the Lord words, hear the Spirit inspires you. All whom God chose, gain love and rapture here. So as we sing the new spiritual song, give all your love and the highest glory. We've begun the millennium wedding feast in the golden city, the world of eternal joy. No one can love us as much as the Lord. We've been redeemed. He atoned for our sins. He made us whiter than the whitest snow. Now we become heaven's brides, victory in this world eludes so many. Hearts out of line, minds unfocused, feet unsteady. But I found the way to make things turn out right, acting on the word as if I'm catching light. realize the deep heart of my Lord. I want to strive much more. I want to change much more. To reach the greatest love, strive for the perfect love. I confess to the Lord, please take delight in my love for you. Higher and higher through the sky I'm flying, hand in hand with you I fly. I will love you, Lord, forever. You now take me by your side. For this moment I've waited so. I fly high with the Lord. I'll be your hands and feet, fulfilling his story. And with the Spirit's power, I wake the souls around. I'll do my best to love you perfectly. I want to soothe your heart and be a bride of love. Suddenly I have changed. Now I behold the city of gold. Higher and higher through the sky I'm flying, hand in hand with you I fly. I will love the Lord forever. You now take me by your side. For this moment I've waited so. I fly high with the Lord. Higher and higher through the sky I'm flying, hand in hand with you I fly. I will love you, Lord, forever. You now take me by your side. For this moment I've waited so. I fly high with the Oh Lord, I love you so, I love you, Lord, eternally, it's only you. If I were to be born again, still I would follow only you. For this moment I've waited so. Now I'll make it come true. Oh Lord, I love you so, I love you, Lord, eternally, it's only you. If I were to be born again, still I would follow only you. For this moment I waited so. Now I'll make it come true. Higher and higher through the sky I'm flying, hand in hand with you I fly. I will love you, Lord, forever. You now take me by your side. For this moment I've waited so. I fly high with the Lord.
And that is I Fly with the Lord. I hope you guys enjoyed that praise time together. A lot of good songs there. The Lord's Love was the first one. Then Swift Cloud. I haven't heard the Swift Cloud one in a long time, but that's a really, really good song. I wonder who that voice is. I can't recognize who the singer is. Really, really good. I love the producing on that one also. And of course, the last one we just heard, once again, it was Sarah Chamberlain, and it's I Fly with the Lord. So I hope you guys enjoyed that song, which brings us into the word study for today. And of course, it is Tuesday. What does that mean? We go into one of the books, or coming from the scriptures of this week. Today we're going to look at the book of Daniel. Okay, the book of Daniel, it's from this week's message. I think Daniel chapter 12, verses 4 through, is it 1 through 4? 4 through 6? Daniel chapter 12 for this week's message. It is verse 4 through 7. All right, cool. There's also Revelations, but I want to do a big series on the Revelations one. So let's take a look at the book of Daniel. It's a very, very important book, especially because this is where we learn about times, and half a times in Daniel chapter 12, right? Just going to give you some background of Daniel. Daniel, for those who don't know, Daniel was taken away into Babylonian captivity. He was one of two prophets at that time. It was both Daniel and Ezekiel that were taken at the Babylonian captivity. Interesting thing is, even when Ezekiel talks about righteous people of God, he talks about three prophets, and Daniel is one of them, which is quite amazing. This is a 6th century book, and Daniel was taken away at the age of around 17 or 18. So guys, you have to think about how intelligent and how amazing this guy is, because he was considered like very clever and intelligent at 17, 18. He was a prophet, already realizing that God is working through him. And if you go through his life, at 17, 18, he was taken to Babylon, and he was thrown in the lion's den around 70 years old, and he died around 85. So that's kind of a timeline of how you see how things are. Imagine living that long in that country. It's like basically over 50 years living in that country. And then he goes back, and he just wanted to go back so badly, while other people were living in Babylon for a long time, and they didn't want to go back to Israel. The word Daniel, what the name Daniel means is God is my judge. So that's his Hebrew name. He had two other different names too. One given to him by Nebuchadnezzar at that time. And one of the reasons why they changed people's names is so they don't remember their old heritage and their old history, right? So that's why he had up to 3 names. But Daniel is a Hebrew name from birth, and it means God is my judge. He is one of 4 major prophets in the Old Testament, so he's one of the most important ones. Like a major prophet, meaning large books. I believe it's Ezekiel, Jeremiah, Isaiah, and Daniel are the top 4. Right, of the major prophets in the Old Testament time. He is considered one of, for just Christians in general, early Christians. Many early Christians read the book of Daniel. There's a lot of evidence that they held highly to Daniel's books, right? And basically, Daniel's books, they call it apocalyptic literature. And it doesn't just mean he's talking about the end times and talking about great distress. Also, but if you look at kind of like the root word for apocalypse, right? Apocalypse, it basically means taking the veil away. And the reason why a lot of people read his book, remember, you got to remember that the people in the New Testament time didn't have a New Testament Bible. All they had was the Old Testament, and Daniel was considered one of the favorites, or ones that early Christians read a lot. And they say that it unveiled and showed new things to them when they read that book. One thing is very, very popular about the book of David is David's book had a lot of narratives, a lot of stories, like really, really interesting stories. For instance, the most famous one we know is Daniel thrown into the lion's den. Or his 3 friends, Meshach, Shadrach, and Abednego, were thrown into the fiery furnace. Or the handwriting we see on the wall, or the rape of Susanna, or Bel the dragon. So it's a small book. It's the book of Daniel is only 12 chapters, but there's like these, like the narratives, the stories in there are very amazing. So if you want to read a fun book, that's a book you should read, right? The book of Daniel. In 12 chapters, there are 5 amazing narratives, right? Stories, and they're really, really good. Another famous thing that Daniel's famous for is visions and dreams and prophesying. And of course, one thing that some seem to talk about Daniel was he was someone who was super intelligent, because he had that one type of vision. If you guys remember the Revelations lecture, there's one of the visions called passing through the brain, and only super intelligent people are able to get those ones. I'd love to say I had one, and I think I did, but I don't know. Like, it's it's super super intelligent people. Like it's I guess it's very very rare. So one thing he was like Joseph actually, because he was also interpreter of dreams. Even King Nebuchadnezzar came to him about a dream, and he was very very visionary, and very visionary quality. And he was so visionary, it was haunting to Israel until the time of Jesus, because a lot of things he said were correct. So one interesting thing about Daniel was that he was able to interpret people's dreams, but he had to get other people to interpret his. Well, I don't know if it was other people, because in his dreams he would ask someone to interpret his dream. Pretty crazy, right? Yeah. And Daniel is a book that was actually written in two different languages. It was written in both Hebrew and Aramaic, and this is why there's still some questions about whether Daniel wrote it or not, like the full book. But it is written in two languages. And an interesting fact for those of you, especially those of you in the Chinese world, is Daniel was living at the exact same time as Confucius. Right? A lot of us know that Confucius, he's a Chinese teacher, philosopher. He's very wise sayings. Like, I don't want to sound racist, but I'm Asian too, but it's like, you have fortune cookies, you have these wise sayings that come out and stuff, like Confucius says, and he's living at the exact same time as Daniel, which is kind of cool. They were living at the same time. And Daniel lived through 4 different kings. As interesting that is, well, he was 50 years in Babylon. He lived through 4 kings. So that's quite interesting. I hope you guys were able to really understand a little bit better of the book of Daniel. And I really, he's got such really funny, fun stories and narratives. It's very, very interesting. Like I said, we know the throne, the 3 friends thrown in the furnace, lion's den, and the handwriting on the wall. But the 2 other ones you should read about is the rape of Susanna and also Bel the dragon. Okay, just read those ones. Really, really interesting stories. If there's any book that you want to start with that you would say, oh, the Bible's boring, you got to read the book of Daniel. Book of Daniel is great. Yeah, so if you read that one, it's like, oh, that's an interesting book to start with. And that's going to bring us into the song of choice for today. And the song of choice today, I got to go back into the old school. This song is from 1967. A hit single from 1967 from Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell. And this song was written by Ashford and Simpson. Those of you guys who don't know Ashford and Simpson is, like, they're also another very famous duo. But they wrote it, and it was Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell that were the ones that sang it. 1967 hit single. I believe the highest it went was like number 13. But later, 3 years later, it went number 1 when Diana Ross sang the exact same song a little bit later. So we're going to listen to the song. Very, very famous song. I'm sure even though this is like from the 60s, everyone knows this song. It is Ain't No Mountain High Enough.
Listen, baby, ain't no mountain high, ain't no valley low, ain't no river wide enough, baby.
If you need me, call me. No matter where you are, no matter how far.
Don't worry, baby.
Just call my name. I'll be there in a hurry. You don't have to worry. 'Cause baby, there ain't no mountain high enough. Ain't no valley low enough. Ain't no river wide enough to keep me from getting to you.
And that is Ain't No Mountain High Enough. I'm sure you guys were dancing to this song. That's from Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell from 1967. I hope you guys really enjoyed that. For me, that's a dancing song. Like, I'm like tapping my feet and I'm getting my groove on this one. Now, what we're going to do now is we're going to try something a little bit different today, right? Because we've been doing a lot of stories and stuff, and there's tons of stories still out there, but we're going to try something a little bit different because, you know, something talks about how important the Bible is, right? So I do want to spend this time too to talk about Bible stories, right? Stories that like kind of some summaries of stories that will get us to understand, oh, you know, yeah, I remember this group or I remember this person kind of thing, right? So I do want to do some like some Bible story summaries where we'll be like, oh, yeah. And then everyone will be a little bit more comfortable with these songs. Okay, so today I want to go over, it's from the book of Judges, chapter 6, okay? And this is the story of Gideon and his army. So everyone, you know, let's just enjoy this time listening to a Bible story. The story starts out by proclaiming that the Lord was angry with the Israelites for falling into sin again and worshiping false gods and idols. Because of this, the Lord left them in the hands of the destructive Midianites for 7 years. Finally, fed up, the Israelites called out to God for help. God would send aid through a man named Gideon. Gideon was just a small young boy who was threshing wheat. An angel appears before Gideon saying, "The Lord is with you, mighty warrior." Then the angel then proceeds to tell Gideon that he will deliver the Israelites from the Midianites. To which point Gideon says, "I'm just a young kid." Gideon then asks the angel for a sign to prove that he's really speaking with God. He leaves and returns with an offering of food. The angel then spontaneously combusts the food. Gideon then realizes it is truly an angel of the Lord. The same night, the Lord tells Gideon to destroy one of his father's altars to an idol Baal and replace it with an altar to God and sacrifice a bull on it. Gideon does so, and he does it at night so that he's not caught. The townspeople find out Gideon did this and demand his execution. Gideon's father, Joash, however, exclaimed that if Baal were truly a god, he'd be able to defend himself. Gideon then calls to arms to fight against the Midianites, and several other peoples join him. Then Gideon asks for another sign that God is with them, and asking God to make fleece the only wet thing on the ground the next morning, and then the only dry thing on the ground on the morning after. God does both of these, and Gideon knows God is with them. In the morning, the Lord tells Gideon he must cut down the size of his army, because otherwise the Israelites won't contribute their win to God, but rather to themselves. Gideon achieves this by asking that any person who is afraid should leave. 22,000 of the 10,000 people leave because of this. However, God said, this is still too many people. So he tells Gideon to go down to a river and see how the men drink. God then instructed Gideon to only keep people who drank like a dog. Gideon complied, which brought his army to size. That night, God instructs Gideon to go down to the valley of the Midianite valley to see what the Midianites were dreaming of. This was meant to relax and assure Gideon that God was on his side. In the valley, Gideon overhears a conversation between two Midianites, in which one Midianite says he had a dream where a loaf of bread tumbling down the hill onto the Midianites' tents. The other Midianite interprets this as the sword of Gideon laying wrath upon the Midianites. After hearing this, Gideon decides to go back up the valley and start invading. Gideon tells his people, split up into 3 groups. Gideon then gives everyone trumpets and jars with torches in them. After marching to the Midianite camp, everyone blew their trumpets and broke the jars. Then they stood there repeating, "A sword for the Lord and Gideon." All the Midianites fled in terror from this sight. Gideon then sent messengers to other Israelites about the Midianites. So the other Midianites captured the Midianites there and killed their leaders. And that is the story of Gideon. All right. I don't know if that was too dramatic. I was using the soundtrack from the movie Gladiator, and I almost felt like I was about to fight someone. Oh, wow. Yeah, I'm going to use something a little less intense next time. I was thinking, like, this is like a war movie. Like, you know, this is going to be a story about war, so I'm going to do something warish. So I use the Gladiator soundtrack, and now I feel like I want to kill someone. I want to go to war. I want to get on my horse, take a sword, and go to battle. Good gosh. But everyone, I hope you guys understood that story of Gideon and you enjoyed it. You know, give me some comments. Like, you know what? Maybe, you know, I thought to myself, maybe it's a little bit too dramatic in the songs. But write your comments. I want to hear what you guys think about it because, you know, this is a time for everyone to make this podcast together. And I want you guys to give me your ideas too and say, you know what? I want to hear some more about this and I want to hear some of this too. So just put it into the comments, and I would love to hear what you guys are thinking, which leads us to the end of today's podcast. It is Tuesday, and I hope you guys really, really enjoyed today's podcast. Have a wonderful day, and keep it moving on the Morning Star Drive on 117.8, and we'll see you guys again tomorrow.
Gotta believe in yourself, cause no one else will.
You have the power